Alright, so in this video I'm going to try to cover filter method of JavaScript arrays. So let me just go to the script editor here. I'm just going to make another script file here to keep this separate. So let me create an array. So it will be a variable. Add some numbers here. So let's try to use a method filter on it. So if I use that variable dot filter, you can see we can use that filter method. Like all array methods, or at least most of them, I guess, it will accept a function. Let me create that function separately on this one. That's what I'm going to call this function, filter logic. Now I'm using this way of creating a function because I don't want that function to show up in my runnable functions here. And this function is going to accept a parameter item. So then I'm going to use that function in this filter. So that's going to be that same filter logic. From here, I'm passing that function here to this array. So that will return a new array. No space there. And then we can log the results of that new array. Here we go. So in this function, we're going to get this item. And what this item is going to be when you run this filter, this is sort of like map method. When you use a map method, it will basically pass each one of these items in your array as an argument inside of this function. And then you can return something with some logic on it. So in this case, what this is going to do, every time for each one of these items, it's going to run this function that I've called filter logic, and it's going to pass whatever item I have in this array, which is a bunch of numbers in this case, 4, in here as an item. I'm going to do this. I'm going to say if that item, in this case it's a number, right, greater than 6, then I'm going to return true. Otherwise, I'm going to return false. And of course, you have to type that right. So what this filter function is expecting you to do, finally, I'll get that right. There it is. So it will expect you to return true or return false. And for every item you return true, it will keep that item. For every item you return false, it will not keep that item. So in this case, we're going to get 4, right? So when we pass 4 here, 4 is 4 greater than 6? No. So we're going to return false, which means we're going to drop that 4. Then we're going to do is 8 greater than 6? And it is. So we're going to return true, which means 8 we're going to keep. So by doing this, we're going to basically keep everything that's greater than 6 and filter out everything that's not. So if I run this, and by the way, I'm running my function, this function over here. If we look at our log, see we get 8, 33, and 9 because we just filtered our results to everything that's greater than 6. Let's say you have text. So again, if I wanted to remove everything that says text, let's make this the same as the last one. So if I wanted to remove everything that says text1 in it, what I can do, I can say if my item is equal to text1, so I want to drop it, right? So if I want to drop it, it would have to be false. Otherwise, it's going to be true. So if I run this, go back, see, I filtered those text ones out of it. So let's say I wanted to filter out everything that has the word text in it. So text 1, text 2, or anything that says text. So in that case, I can use this index of. And by the way, there is an index of array method, and there is also index of method for text. And just to make sure there is no funny things happening there, I'm going to also convert it to text first, to string. Because if this is a number, there's no index of on that. So let's convert it to string first and then do index of. So I'm going to do index of, and we'll be searching for text. And if index of doesn't find something, it will return -1. So I can say if the result of this search is a -1, so meaning we didn't find text, then we're gonna keep it, right? Because we didn't find it. Otherwise, we're gonna drop it, so false. So let's take a look. So there it is. Basically, we filtered out anything that contains that text in it. That's that. Now let's look at two-dimensional arrays for a second here. So let's say this is not a single-dimensional array. This is a two-dimensional array, which means it's an array that has arrays in it. And in this array, I'll just keep it simple, A and 1, and we'll do B, and it's 45, and then C, and that's 15. So let's say we want to filter out everything in here that's less than 20. So that means we have to get rid of this one, right? It's less than 20. Maybe I'm going to add one more. Let's do one more array here. D. So everything less than 20 or 13 something. Let's try to do 13. We're going to filter out. So to do this, what I will have to do, so when I pass this item now, the item is going to be this entire array. So if I'm passing that entire array, what I want to check if this number inside of this array is less than a certain number, and then if it is, I'm going to filter that out. Since this is my item, to get to this number, I have to grab the thing in position 2 here, which is 0, 1. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say if item 1 is greater than 13, then we want to keep it. Otherwise, we're going to drop it. Let's go back and run this. We got B45 and C15. So we were able to grab that and filter our array. And if I wanted to filter by this first thing in this array, I would say item 0, right? Because that would be the first thing in the array. And we would say if it's a B or something, let's drop it or something like that. Now let's try to use this together with Google Spreadsheets, right? So we have this tab. We have some data here. So what I want to do, I basically want to just filter this to, let's say, this Jerry Jefferson. And I just want to create a new tab that's going to be called Jerry Jefferson, right? Basically that person's name. And I want to just grab only the data for that person and put it in here on this tab. And we're going to do that obviously with a script, not manually. First of all, let me get rid of most of this stuff. And I'm going to get rid of this too. We'll just keep this part. That's fine. So let's first of all create a variable to hold our spreadsheet. That's going to be this. Then let's create a variable to grab this tab. So this tab is transactions. I'm going to actually grab it by the name transactions. So to do that, I'm going to go inside of this spreadsheet. And I'm going to get sheet by name. And the name for that sheet is transactions. And I should have stored that in a variable. So variable, that should do it. So this is similar to doing like get active sheet, right? If you want to get the current tab you're on. But I just want to grab the tab called transactions, and I'm going to work with that. Now, the next thing I want to do, I want to get all of this data over here to a range. And to do that, first I'll have to get my tab, and then I'm going to do get range, and we'll have to get the starting row. Now we'll go from here, from the second row. So row 2, column 1. Now we have to get the number of rows, and we're going to get that by doing this get last row. And if I get the last row, it will give me this 4989. But this variable in our get range is not really the last row. It is how many rows we want in this range, which means the number of rows in this range is not going to be actually 4989, it's going to be 4988. And the reason for that is because we don't want the label on top. So we start from the second row, and if I just grab this information from the second row and Control Shift down to highlight this, see the count here, 4,988. That's how many things we have there. So therefore, I'm going to do that -1, comma, and how many columns is that? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to just ignore city state because there's nothing there. And I'm going to do get values. And basically, this is just going to get us to an array, right? So I'm going to say var data original data, maybe, is this. So this is going to get us an array, which will be a 2-dimensional array of this whole thing. And what we need to do, we need to first filter that array, and we want to just filter it to this Jerry Jefferson, right? So let me just copy that name, and let me just create a variable, sales rep equals 2. I'll put it in a variable. So now I want to be able to take this original array and filter it to just Jerry Jefferson. To do that, I will have to take this original array dot, and we're going to use our filter method on it. In our filter method, we could basically use this function, right? After I pass it through that filter logic, I'm going to have to return it to a new array. So I'm going to call this data equals to that. That's going to be the data after we hopefully filter it. I will try to just log this out for now to see what we're getting. And that's the data. And here in our filter function, I have to filter this out. So I'm going to write if, right, again. And what I have to check if this item, and the item in this case is going to be, every time is going to be this entire row. And in this row, I have to check if the second column, because that's where the sales rep is Jerry Jefferson, and we're going to keep it. Otherwise, we're going to just drop it. For that, since it's the second column, I'm going to say item 1. So 0 is the first column, 1 is the second column. I'm going to say if that equals to, and for right now, let's just do this, Jerry Jefferson. Then we want to do what? We want to return true. Otherwise, we're going to just return false. So there it is. So if it's Jerry Jefferson, we're going to return true. So we're going to keep it. Otherwise, we're going to drop it. For right now, let me save this and run this. Let's just see what we get. If I look at my logs, it's going to be a pretty busy log, but you can see this is the first row. See, that's Jerry. The second row, that's Jerry again. The third row, Jerry. Fourth, as you can see, everything is Jerry. Now, another way to do this, instead of writing this entire if statement, there is a much easier way to make this happen. Instead of doing this, this itself, this line, it's a logical test, and it's going to check, is this equal to Jerry Jefferson? If that's true, it's going to return true, and if it's false, it's going to return false. So if I simply, instead of doing that entire if statement, just say return this, that will be enough for me to just keep whatever's Jerry Jefferson. And it's going to say if this, which is that column, is equal to Jerry Jefferson, then it's true. So it's going to return true. So we're going to keep it. Otherwise, it's going to be false. So we're not going to keep it. So let's run this and verify this really quick. And you can see we got all Jerry stuff in our results. So that's a shorter way to write this. And finally, instead of doing all of this here, because we can do this pretty short, we can just, instead of using this extra external function, just have a function with no name here. And again, in that function, we're going to pass the item, and the entire logic of that function is this single line that returns that person. And then I can get rid of this. And again, if I run this, it should be the same. Finally, now because I'm putting this entire thing inside of this function that I'm planning to run, then we can also access this variable sales rep. So instead of saying Jerry Jefferson here, I will just use that variable from here to just filter to that. So I'm going to run this and log this. Everything we get here hopefully is Jerry Jefferson. So now we've got our array that's Jerry Jefferson. All we have to do is just make a new tab and put that data on that tab. In order for us to do this, let me comment this out. We have to take our spreadsheet, which is our SS variable, and we're gonna do insert sheet. You can see we can do multiple things. We can do insert sheet and just add a new tab, and it will just automatically create a tab with some random name. We can also just create a tab and give it a name. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this, and this is going to be the name, and we'll just use this variable. I could just type the name over here, but we have this variable. Why not use that? So we're going to create a whole new tab with the name of that sales rep. Now, we might want to check if that tab exists before we create that tab, because if we create a tab with that person's name, then we try to create it again, it's going to be an error. But for now, I'm going to skip that, and we're going to move to the next step. So we're going to create a new tab. And now that we have this new tab, we're going to grab that tab. And by the way, one thing I want you to note, if I do that insert sheet, see, it says after the colon, the return is going to be the actual tab. So that means I can just insert this tab and store it in a variable. Call it target sheet. And that's going to be the variable that holds the sheet. So it will be pretty much similar at this point to this. And then in this tab, we'll have to take the tab and use get range. And we're going to start placing this data again in that new tab, wherever that new tab is going to be from row 2. That's where we're placing it. So row 2, column 1. And then I'll have to, again, figure out number of rows, number of columns, and we'll dynamically just figure out from our data. So number of rows would be data.length. The number of columns will be data 0, which is the first row dot length. So that will be number of columns. If this doesn't make sense to you, watch previous videos for that. And then I'll do set values. And that's going to be my data array, which is our modified array after the filter. So let me run this. Let's go back and take a look. See, we have a new tab, Jerry Jefferson, and we got all of this data with Jerry Jefferson on it. Now I can delete this out of here. Let's try it with somebody else's name. So let's say we want to get Perry. I'm gonna copy that, and really all I have to change just this variable. The rest I was just using variable names here and later on down the line, which means I should be able to just run this. So there it is, Perry Neal. That's all the information filtered to that person. Now let's say we want to do some extra filters. Instead of just filtering to the name of that person, we also want to filter to everything for that person where sales number is greater than 200. So I'm gonna first delete this. Now I also want to filter by this column, which will be column 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that means that in addition to filtering to this, I'm gonna do an AND statement and say at the same time, let's make sure that, I believe I said 5, right? I'm gonna have to count this again. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Nope, 4. So 4, I'm gonna say that should be greater than, I don't know, 300. Let's try that. So this should filter to everything above 300 in sales column and everything that's Perry Neal as a sales rep. So let's save it, and means both have to be true at the same time. So I'm going to save this, and that tab isn't there anymore. I'm going to run this. Go back and take a look. The Perry Neal. See, we got all these numbers above 300. And if you wanted to also, let's say, filter to Midwestern region or something, or Western region or whatever, a particular region, then all you have to do, just keep going with this logic, right? So that's going to be another and I'll have to check which column that is, 0, 1, 2. So that will be, let me just copy this. I'm going to say item 2 should be Western. Save. That should give you an idea how this works. I'm going to run this. And I think I forgot to delete the tab. Yeah. So it seems like what has happened this time is we might not have anything for Perry Neal in that particular region. And yeah, so it seems like this person only has northeastern, and we just filtered everything and there was nothing else left in that case, which means over here, instead of just placing our data, we may need to do an if statement just in case this happens, because we might filter things and might not have anything left, right? So I can say if the length of my data is greater than 0, then let's run this line. Otherwise, let's not do it because, well, we don't have anything left. So it seems like I have to do a different thing because there's only one and it's not going to make a lot of sense. So let's try to do this. Let's just grab Nike brand, and that will be the next column over. Item 3, Nike. Let's run. Just one. Let's see. Oh, we also filter above 300, which is true. So 1. That's actually correct. So now we have multiple filters. Now you can see how this can get a little confusing to read as you're continuing on the same line. So this is why it might be a good idea maybe to have this line of conditions to go to the next line like this so you can actually read what's going on here, which should run the same way. It doesn't matter. So finally, the last one I want to show you, what if I want everything filtered to Nike and Adidas? So if I wanted to do that, the column is 3. Now what I would do, I would say that is Nike. And then if I do and, that wouldn't work because we can't have the same item being Adidas and Nike at the same time because we're passing one row each time, and that row is going to be, well, the current row, and the current row cannot be Adidas and Nike at the same time. So this is why we have to use or, which you do by using these 2 pipes. So I hit save. So that should just create a new tab with this name, and it's going to just place Nike and Adidas on it. So let's run this. And there it is, Nike, Adidas. And if you wanted to get everything that's Nike and Adidas, and you wanted to get only Jerry Jefferson, then Jerry Jefferson was column 2 here. I'm going to put this in parentheses, this or part, and at the same time, I want to make sure that it's the sales rep. It's going to be perennial, I guess, not Jerry Jefferson. It doesn't matter. So, and that was second column. So 1, 0, 1. So now we group this together as one. We're saying it's either one of these 2, and at the same time, it's going to be this sales rep. Let's run this. Here we go. See? And that's how you use filter function. So take a filter, you do some condition, and based on that condition, you return true. Whatever true stays, whatever false is filtered out. And that should do it for this video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.